Hi, I'm Patrick Dunnican. At Gibbons, we believe that citizens need to be informed about the complex issues that affect their lives. That's why we're proud to support the programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
Funding for this edition of Caucus New Jersey has been provided by Passaic County Community College. PSE&G, committed to improving New Jersey's economy and strengthening its communities. Summit Medical Group, a physician-owned multi-specialty medical practice serving northern and central New Jersey in 70 locations. Create, the law firm of Gibbons PC. New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation. And by Josh S. Weston. Promotional support provided by bestofnj.com, covering all New Jersey has to offer. And by Observer New Jersey Politics.
Welcome to Caucus, New Jersey. I'm Steve Adubato. So what exactly are the biggest issues facing our business community? Here in the studio to talk about what we can actually do to make New Jersey's business more competitive, we have Ralph Thomas, CEO and Executive Director of New Jersey Society of CPAs. Debbie Hart, President and CEO, BioNJ. Michele Siekerka, President and CEO, New Jersey Business and Industry Association. And finally, Tom Bracken, President and CEO of the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank all of you for joining us to talk about New Jersey business and how we can make us more competitive. So, Michele, let me ask you, we've talked a lot about these issues. What makes us not as competitive as we should be right out of the box?
Well, our tax rates. You can line up our tax rates: sales tax, property tax, corporate business tax, individual tax, estate and inheritance tax. We're an outlier on many of them, and when you put them all together, we are dead last compared in the nation.
Is it largely taxes?
That's a huge part of it. On top of that, we have the cost of regulation, which business deals with every single day. Every time there's a new regulation in the state, that means new paper that needs to be pushed in a back office somewhere, and that means that we have to do our business processes different, and as a result of that, it costs us more money.
Tom, jump in here. Our team was out at the annual Chamber train ride getting ready when you folks once again. How many people, by the way, were going to Washington on that train?
There were about close to 1,000.
An awful lot of the business folks we talked to said a lot of the same things Michele just did.
Right.
Is it taxes and regulations largely?
Oh, they play a huge role in this, but you also have to remember that we have not reinvested in our state infrastructure, which is the foundation of our economy. That hurts our competitive situation. We need to work to get our students staying here and a part of our workforce, because the more our businesses grow, the more they need qualified people in the workforce. That has to be worked on. There are many, many issues that need to be worked on. And I would say that these issues are not being ignored, but we just have to look at these issues and address these issues at a faster pace if we're going to be more competitive.
They're not being ignored?
No. There's work done on every one of these issues.
We'll come back and talk about the Transportation Trust Fund in a second. But let me ask you this, Debbie. By the way, describe your organization.
So we represent the biotechnology, life sciences industry in the state of New Jersey.
And they are what kinds of organizations?
Biotech companies, pharmaceutical companies, academic institutions, and those that support them, service providers.
But I'm going to give Ralph a chance as well. CPA firms?
We're an individual membership organization, but firms are heavily involved in the society.
But we'll come back all the way around.
Okay.
So I'll give you a chance on BIA and then come back to Tom.
Yeah. 20,000 businesses across the state of New Jersey, majority small business.
Tom?
We have more the middle market and larger corporations as our members, so we kind of complement what the BIA does.
By the way, we have a collaborative cross-promotional relationship with Michele's organization as well as Tom's. I just want to clarify that. Let me ask you this. So when we talk about New Jersey's advantages, one of the first things that comes up in conversations around the country and in the state is, so New Jersey is the medicine chest, is that what it's called?
Medicine chest of the world.
Okay,
yes.
So at least we've got the pharmaceutical industry, at least they're doing great. A, is that true? And B, what would make the pharmaceutical industry be even stronger?
So it's the biopharmaceutical industry now, and the biotech companies are part of that. And in fact, that sector of the industry has been growing for the last 20 years, at a very steady pace here in New Jersey. What would make them all stronger is the kinds of things that we're talking about today. Tax structure that makes sense for everyone, regulation that makes sense for everyone, makes it easy for business to do business here.
Back up. The term regulation gets thrown out a lot. Michele talked about it. Tom talked about it. We'll come back to Ralph in a second on this. Give me a regulation. Give our audience a regulation where they say, oh, that's what you're saying is difficult for a business, for an accounting firm, whatever it is. Like what?
So building permits, those sorts of things that take, far longer than they should to be approved. Hurdles like that.
A building permit. Now, devil's advocate, someone might say, of course it takes a long time to approve because the Department of Environmental Protection, charged with protecting our environment, has to make sure that that building permit doesn't in any way jeopardize the waterway, the pristine water system. You got to make sure that it's done in the right way, you say?
Absolutely, it makes sense, but aren't there more efficient ways to do that? And I know the Lieutenant Governor's done a lot of terrific work on this and made some real headway. There's still certainly more.
If you will.
The Red Tape Commission, absolutely. Individual towns as well as counties and then the state in certain areas.
But you're saying we can protect the environment without the delays?
I believe there is a compromise that absolutely can address all aspects of the challenge.
Jump in here, Ralph.
Well, to Debbie's point, I think the problem is sometimes the process and people working in the process. Things don't get done in a timely fashion. There are delays. I know with some of my members taking, a couple of months to get reciprocity if you're a CPA in another state.
Explain that.
Well, in today's environment, you can be certified in any of the 50 states. And if you're going to move to another state, we want to get reciprocity, which means the ability to have a practice privilege here. In the past, and we've been successful, our organization, in collapsing that time, but in the past, it could take up to 6 months for somebody who's already a CPA in another jurisdiction to be able to get reciprocity and practice privileges. When you think about the impact of an individual who's in public accounting and servicing a client, that's a huge time frame to that. I mean, the exam is a national exam.
Yeah.
The requirements are pretty much the same, little tweaks from here in state, but to take that much time to process an application to get a reciprocal license in here. So in the past, individuals would almost have to reapply as if they were a new licensee and go back to get their transcripts from when they were in college. So if you've been practicing for 20 years, an affidavit as to who you work for. Some firms aren't still in business now.
So here's my question: does that make New Jersey less competitive for that accountant and that firm?
Sure, absolutely.
And so, Michele, let's come back to you. Competitiveness. Firms and people who have the ability to be mobile, to move. Mm-hmm. We've been to your events, we've been to Tom's, where we've talked about this. One of the issues that often comes up are the two so-called death taxes in the state of New Jersey. If I get this wrong, you'll correct me. You know taxes better than most. The estate and the inheritance tax. Put it in perspective for us, those two taxes, and why New Jersey is, I believe, one of two states that has this unique combined two death taxes, sure, and what it has to do with competitiveness.
Well, we are a significant outlier here. We are only one of two states that has both. Okay.
Is Maryland the other one?
Yeah, but they've already been taking steps to eliminate it. So they're ahead of us.
So, so the estate tax is the taxes on your estate.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Your inheritance.
The inheritance is on the person who's receiving. So the estate tax goes lineal, stays within your bloodline. Okay, that's who's affected. Now let me give you a good example. Okay,
sure. Let's
talk about a company business. All right, the farm. We have a family farm or a family restaurant, generations, okay? Someone dies and the estate is the business and it passes to the children. There's a big tax bill that gets paid before that business can pass to the children. What happens many times is you have to create the money in order to pay that tax bill. And we've heard many, many times they sell the business in order to pay the tax bill. That's the clearest example of how it impacts a business. That's why our members tell us that when they do succession planning, they consider estate and inheritance tax.
So, Tom, Is it fair to say that those two taxes are causing some people to, quote, I hate to be so morbid, choose to die in another state, be it Florida or another state?
Sure. I mean, the common comment you hear is, I can afford to live here, but I can't afford to die here. And the other thing you're missing about that, Steve, is not only would an elimination of one or both of those taxes keep more people here, but I've talked to many people that have said that the people who have moved out of New Jersey to avoid that, they might move back.
What do you mean?
Well, if they don't have, if there's no estate tax here, which is what drove them out of the state, they are now spending 6 months and a day outside of New Jersey.
To establish official residence in another state? I'm sorry.
So now they don't want to disrupt their families. They'd rather be here 10 months with their families in New Jersey. So they might then take up residency back in New Jersey to be with their families, which would help us tremendously.
Well, what does this have to do with business competitiveness?
Well, a lot of these people are business owners, and sometimes they can move their business. The businesses in some cases are mobile, or they might sell their business to somebody just to get out of the state. There's a lot of different ramifications to this. So a lot of the people who are people who would be impacted by this, and by the way, there are thousands and tens of thousands of people who would be impacted by this, not the number that keeps floating around, which is a couple of hundred.
You think it's several thousand?
Oh, it's many thousands.
And Debbie, I'll come back to you. You have a significant number of folks in your industry who may work at a New Jersey-based pharmaceutical, but, quote, dare I say, live in Pennsylvania?
We do, and in fact, I have very specific examples of those who have, just in the last couple of years, made the move across the river, keeping their companies here, fortunately, so far, but made the move across the river to avoid taxes.
To avoid the estate and inheritance tax.
Another tax.
But here's the devil's advocate position. Mm-hmm. Those who have said you got to be very cautious about eliminating one or both of these taxes, particularly the estate tax, is that we would, quote, lose right off the bat $300 or $400 million of those taxes that annually come to the state of New Jersey that get paid by those people. We can't give up that money with such a huge budget gap, Ralph. We can't.
But what we're not looking at are the unintended consequences when a person leaves. They're going to take not only the adjusted gross income annuity. If they have a business, they may take the business because they may not have a brick and mortar business. It could be a professional services.
Right.
And they can do those things. I often joke with my boy that I could run the society from North Carolina.
Could be
because
anywhere.
of technology. So I think what's lost in the discussion is, yeah, there's a $400 million, but what is the unintended consequence when those individuals pick up and leave the state and go somewhere else? That annuity from the adjusted gross income tax.
Right.
If they have a business, that business tax. Also, they may be very philanthropic, those opportunities. So we're not really
They're not giving to charities as much?
Absolutely.
And the nonprofits then suffer.
And the nonprofits suffer, and then they come back to the state for funding.
All right, Tom, hold your thought. I promise I'll come back. I got to go to a quick break.
Okay.
Right? I promise we'll come back. When we come back, we'll hear from Tom. Also talk about the $15 an hour minimum wage and see what our business leaders think about that. Stay with us. We'll be right back right after this.
To see more Caucus New Jersey with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at steveadubato.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato PhD and follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
Welcome back, folks. We're talking about the business climate in the state of New Jersey. Tom, jump right back in.
Yeah, my view on eliminating the estate tax and to refute the people who are saying we can't afford to do this, we can't afford not to do this. This is an investment in New Jersey. We are investing in the opportunity to keep people here and hopefully bring people back to New Jersey. And the long-term solution to New Jersey's problems are adding more jobs, bringing more people in here who are spending money. If we're doing things that take people out of the state, we are really minimizing the future of New Jersey.
You used the word opportunity. I promise to come back. Mm-hmm. You said there's an initiative called Opportunity New Jersey.
Correct.
What is it and why does it matter?
Well, today you have the 4 officers of Opportunity New Jersey. This is an unprecedented coalition that we are putting together to try and address the issues we're talking about today. And the umbrella issue over all of this that can resonate with everyone is the issue of affordability in the state of New Jersey. So what we want to do is we're putting an agenda together to address how do we make New Jersey affordable. In that, how do we make New Jersey competitive with those states that are the ones that are competing for our residents and our businesses? You know, Steve, the #1 and #2 outmigration state are Pennsylvania and New York, right next door to us on either side, not Florida. Okay, so when we've lost our competitive edge to be able to compete with Pennsylvania and New York, we need to take a pause and we need to say why. So Opportunity New Jersey is a nonpartisan, grassroots organization, and our goal is to educate and empower the residents and the business owners of the state of New Jersey on the consequences of policy like $15 minimum wage, paid sick leave, all the things we're talking about today.
So let's go there. We have spoken to Vincent Prieto, the Speaker of the House, the Assembly, the Senate President, Steve Sweeney, and others who advocate for the $15 minimum wage. You say?
I say that it's risky.
Because?
Because it will impact business and their ability, in particular small business, it will impact their ability to stay in business, to operate in a way that makes sense for them to continue doing what they're doing.
You're convinced of that?
I am convinced of that.
You've done some work looking at this, Ralph.
Absolutely. In anticipation that this would be a topic of discussion here, we did a mini survey just a couple days ago, 1,000 respondents. Close to 80% indicated that they thought that an increase in the minimum wage to $15 an hour would have an impact on small businesses.
Negative.
Negative.
But every time we've done this on Capital Report, our sister program, if you will, and we bring this up to the advocates of raising the minimum wage, and this goes to Tom and Michele, they say that's the sky is falling argument, Tom. Mm-hmm. That those who say, well, $15 minimum wage means we're going to have to raise wages for other employees, which means we're going to have to increase the cost for goods and services. And you know what? That never really happens in the end. So that's why this is a red herring, you say?
Well, now there's proof. I mean, you look at the report that came out of Seattle, Washington, that says that they went to $15 minimum wage, and at $11, they started to see some significant unemployment resulting. So when we did
people losing their job.
Absolutely. When we did when New Jersey passed the constitutional amendment going to the link to CPI 2 or 2.5 years ago.
Excuse me. Increasing the minimum wage
by the
directly
CPI.
Linked to the consumer price index.
Yes.
Go ahead. Which you were very much.
Which is just 2.5 years ago, and they say, well, the sky didn't fall. First of all, there's not enough time to measure the sky falling, but secondly, that went from $7.25 to $8.38. So now we're talking about going from $8.38 to $15. So it's a huge, it's apples to oranges comparison. And, you know, I think all of us are compassionate about the working poor's need for more income. None of us are opposed to doing something about the minimum wage. But you know, you have to look at the unintended consequences of doing this, not just who's going to benefit, but who's not going to benefit. What are the negatives about this? That has not been vetted properly. Declan O'Scanlan came out with his
Republican
statement.
budget officer, one of the most respected members of the legislature.
Who said the minimum wage going up that high would have dramatic impacts on the contracts in the state of New Jersey, would cost the state a lot of money, which probably would drive up taxes. So there are a lot of unintended consequences that haven't even been thought of. One of the things we're doing in Opportunity New Jersey is to educate people when an issue's on the table about the pros and the cons so people can make an educated decision.
Michele?
So the whole issue about minimum wage,
yes.
We're artificially inflating the value of a job. Okay, what do I mean?
Why is it artificial?
Because there is a market rate for a position. So just think about this for a minute. Why don't we invest in workforce development skills so we can build the skills of the frontline employee so that they then have the aptitude to garner the wage of a $15 position? Example, you have someone at the counter of the pizzeria. You're going to pay them $15. The paralegal, who's now making $17 an hour, she's going to say, whoa, time out. What's the skill set for that?
He or she?
He or she. What's the skill set for that person at the counter? Look at my skill set. What are you going to do for me now? So we're a huge advocate of workforce development. You know that, Steve. Why don't we invest? Let's incentivize businesses to build the skills of the employees rather than artificially inflate the value of an entry-level position.
Why would those who are pushing for a $15 an hour minimum wage, why would they push for it if these could be the consequences? That's nothing that they would want. Well, why would they push for it, Ralph?
Well, I think they push for it because it's a good soundbite, to be quite honest. But I think they haven't done the homework or the due diligence.
They don't want to hurt any of the people you're talking about.
I understand that. But when you go and talk to small business owners, and And as I said, we just did a survey. Our people touch small business owners, so they know how they're going to react to these kinds of things. And when you look at businesses in general, when something like this comes about, how do they handle it? Do they always pass on the increased cost to the consumer? No, they take various measures. One of which is looking at how can we do more with less.
That's right.
And that less equates into either plant or people.
Plant or people.
People. And that's what happens.
Steve, the intention. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ralph.
And, you know, when we had the economic downturn, how many jobs were lost?
2008-9.
Right. Significant number of
That's
jobs
right.
were lost. And that was the way the people dealt with the economic downturn.
Jump back in, because I want to try to get the paid sick leave in here before we
The
finish up.
intention of the advocates is they have the right intentions for the group that they support. But when we've met with certain organizations who were advocates for the $15 minimum wage, and we started talking about the unintended consequences, a lot of them have backed off and said, now we understand why you're not for it and why we would consider working with an organization like yours to try to find a better way to get to the same point.
Got it. Let me ask you this. The paid sick leave issue that Michele brought up, that the organization Opportunity New Jersey is concerned about. Paid sick leave. The average person hears that, says, you know, someone's sick, a mother's sick, a dad's sick, someone's sick. You don't want that person in work. Paid sick leave. It's unhealthy for that person to come to work. But mandatory, government mandated, paid sick leave.
I think therein lies the problem, the government mandated. I think, you know, businesses will do what makes sense for their businesses and their employees in the process. So it's just risky. It falls in the same category of, you know, mandatory minimum wage, and it jeopardizes the solid businesses, their footing.
I mean, just let the business decide?
Let the business decide, yeah.
But here's the thing. Those who we have talked to who advocate this say there are a lot of businesses who do the right thing. Maybe most. Probably most.
Correct. Correct.
What do we do to the business or about the business who doesn't? Who insists that that employee who is sick goes to work, that employee goes to work who is sick, creates all sorts of issues. That's not good for that person. The other people who work there. Isn't there a role for government there?
But why do we want to legislate around a perceived bad actor and bring all the good actors along with them? That's exactly what we do. We shove everybody into the same box. Right. So think about this, all right? The pizza owner, the 1,000-employee call center, the biggest utility in the state of New Jersey. You think they all should have the exact same paid leave policy? Absolutely not. But we're going to force them to have the exact same paid leave policy. We got to think about, you know, the business owner is the boots on the ground. They're there every day. They know their employees. This is also about competition in the workplace.
What do you mean?
Competition. I provide benefits because I want to attract a good, skilled workforce, right? So there is value to providing benefits. And companies do that. 70%, Steve, provide paid sick leave. 90% provide some type of flexible paid time off, which is even better. So now guess what? You know, that paid time off, you never get sick, so you can take more days to take vacation. This policy, this legislation, the mandate we want to mandate, we take that flexibility off the table and we shove everybody in the box.
So it's interesting. You're actually saying that without the government mandating it, businesses can be more competitive by putting a package together for employment that offers these incentives.
Correct. Correct.
It's called the free enterprise system.
Tom, I hear you. But once again, what is the appropriate role? Okay, then let me say this then. But you have also advocated, and you've been a leader in this fight, to get the government to do the right thing in terms of public investment in infrastructure that fuels New Jersey business, that fuels the economy, more specifically, the Transportation Trust Fund, funding for roads, bridges, mass transit, and the government has failed in that regard.
Well, they haven't failed yet. They just haven't made
To
the
this
decision
date,
yet.
I want to make it clear, we're taping in the middle of September.
Right.
I'm praying and hoping, as everyone here is, that by the time this program airs, it's fixed. Right now, there is no stable
Correct.
source of funding for transportation,
That's right.
road projects, bridges, correct?
Yes.
How does that affect the business climate?
It's a negative. It hurts us competitively. Now the result of that is people are out of work, which increases employment, which is a very, very bad situation. We have the situation where the good weather time has passed for these projects, which means they won't get done through the winter, which is going to increase the costs. It's not a good thing at all. It should have been done a long time ago, but it wasn't, and it needs to be resolved quickly. But you're right, government there has not expedited the process, which would have been a great move for New Jersey.
But you know what's interesting? You talked about taxes when we started the program. You were not against, some of you are not against the idea of raising the gasoline tax a certain amount to fund that stable source of funding for transportation projects. So there are certain cases where certain taxes, for certain reasons, would be good for the economy.
Absolutely. We were
1 minute left. Go ahead. Final comments.
We did an op-ed on raising the gas tax because of the things that, again, the consequences of not doing that.
Right.
The infrastructure goes to hell in the handbasket, so to speak.
Right.
And how is that going to be a situation that attracts people to come or even people to stay if you don't have that?
We also have the opportunity here to do comprehensive tax reform.
Absolutely.
And that's
What
what
do you mean by that?
Opportunity
Real
Jersey is
quick.
all around. So we're agreeing to a 23% increase, a 23-cent increase.
In the gas tax.
Because in exchange, we're going to get estate tax relief. We're going to get an increase in the retirement and pension income threshold. We're going to keep New Jerseyans in New Jersey. So here's our opportunity to take something we must do, that government must be in the business of doing, but at the same time bring other comprehensive reform along with it so that we have tax fairness.
So it's
for the
not just
residents.
increase the gas tax by itself. It's increase the gas tax and do these other things at the same time.
Right.
Exactly.
Promise you we'll come back and talk more about business competitiveness as we move forward. Thank you so much. Great conversation.
Thank you.
The preceding program has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence, and 13 for WNET, NJTV, and WHYY. Funding for this edition of Caucus New Jersey has been provided by Passaic County Community College, PSE&G, Summit Medical Group, Create, the law firm of Gibbons PC, New Jersey Sharing Network, and by Josh S. Weston. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. Caucus New Jersey has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios.
Hi, I'm Peter Rooney. In 2006, I lost my father to renal disease. He was on the waiting list for a new kidney, but did not receive one in time. Unfortunately, so many like my father have lost their lives while waiting for a life-saving organ. At New Jersey Sharing Network, we're committed to saving and enhancing people's lives through organ and tissue donation and by informing people about this important decision. Because you can make a difference and save a life.